Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, I'm going to be taking a look at the video game Tiny Tina's Wonderland, the spin-off to the Borderlands series for the Xbox Series X and S. This is being played off of the Series S, though. It's worth pointing out the game's also available on the Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and PC via Steam or whatever PC storefront you use, though. I also want to give my thoughts on Disney's Plus, The Book of Boba Fett, that I just watched all the episodes and all that stuff. I want to give my thoughts on that, though. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage of Tiny Tina's Wonderland, I'll have a link down in the description down below, or you can click on the card that is being played on this YouTube video, those who watch this on YouTube. And for parents out there, it's worth pointing out Tiny Tina's Wonderland is rated teens for ages 13 and up by the ESRB rating, though. One of the interesting characters that was introduced when Borderlands 2 was released was Tiny Tina, a somewhat of a kind of a bit of a psychopath or pyromaniac type of a character to be exact, though, and she became very popular within the Borderland universe, to be exact. So that she got her own DLC for Borderlands 2, which tend to have sat very well with a lot of folks, though. And she did make an appearance in Borderlands 3, though. So it's kind of interesting to see the fact that they were going to do a somewhat spin-off off the game that was used on the DLC for Borderlands 2, that was called Bunkers and Badass, called Tiny Tina's Wonderland, basically a interesting spin-off to the Borderlands series. So now that I spent some time playing the game, I do want to give you my thoughts on the pros and cons of it, though. So why don't we get started with the pros? And the first one has to do with the visuals of the game. I will say the visuals for Borderlands has always been kind of impressive to me. It always had like that graphic novel, comic book, cel-shaded look to it, though, that still holds up even to this day, and Borderlands and Tiny Tina's Wonderland is no exception to that. Obviously, it's a different setting, a fantasy setting, and all that stuff, but still, it holds up very well, nevertheless, even though this game is running on Unreal Engine 4. Now, obviously, being on the Series S, though, it's not going to have the same kind of graphic fidelity like the way the Series X or the PS5 or even, the PC for that matter. But still, the visuals hold up perfectly fine on the Series S, though, and that certainly is not a bad thing, especially considering the Series S is sort of the budget next-gen console and all that stuff. The next thing I do want to talk about is some of the new things that they added in, and one of those things is sort of the hub world. While there is certainly some open world element to it, though, you basically move around your character into sort of like a hub world, like when you want to go to like a dungeon or anything like that. It's sort of an interesting different approach to it from basically, the different approach from sort of the open world or driving here and there approach that the Borderlands games were known for. So it certainly isn't a bad thing to take sort of a different approach here and there, though. Also, I do like even though I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons person, I do like the vibe to it, though, and I gotta give credit to the developers for coming up with sort of paying homage to, those Dungeons and Dragons or the tabletop RPG games back in the day, though. The next thing I do want to talk about is the story, and the story pretty much holds up very well. Obviously, it's a fantasy setting, and it revolves around the one and only, in a way, I won't say one and only, but to some degree, Butt Stallion, the character you saw from, Borderlands 2 and the Borderlands 2 DLC, which had Tiny Tina as the main focus, though. It's certainly, there are some touching moments, but there is also some funny moments, to be exact, though, and obviously Tiny Tina is still the star, and you can still hear her voice acting is done really well, including other characters, especially the robot one being voiced by Wanda Strike, if I'm saying her name correctly, though. But the story, it's like the typical Borderlands stuff. It has its humor, it has some serious moments, so that certainly isn't necessarily a bad thing. And last but not least is the gameplay, though. Now, the gameplay is pretty much, your typical Borderlands type of game, though. If you played past entries, whether it's the first, second, third, or the pre-sequel, though, you'll feel right at home with this. You have different weapons. Some are automatic, some are like rifles, some are pistols, some are shotguns, or sniper rifles, all done in sort of a fantasy setting, to be exact, though, and that certainly isn't a bad thing. They also have, abilities, like shields and all that stuff. Some new things, though, is they replace grenades with sort of spells, and you can use those, but if you do, you have to wait because there is sort of a cooldown period before you can, use them again, though. So it's certainly nice, and again, a lot of this is more towards the fantasy setting than the sci-fi setting that the Borderlands series is known for, but in its heart, it's still a Borderlands game, and that certainly isn't really a bad thing or anything like that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to part 2, which is the cons, and I want to give my thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett. So we'll take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my video review of Borderlands, or shall I say Tiny Tina's Wonderlands for the Xbox Series X and S. This being played on the Series S, though. So now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons? So there are really only 2 cons, at least in my view, though, at least in my view, based on my time with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, though. And the 2 we'll start off with the first one, and that is, and this one mostly applies to the Xbox Series S, though, and that is that there's really no graphical options for those who play the game on the Xbox Series S, though. While the PS5 and the Series X do have graphical options such as performance or basically, quality, like having a better visual qualities to even, I think certain other features like being able to unlock, like, say, 120 frames per second or anything like that. That option is not available on the Xbox Series S, though, which is a little bit of a disappointment, though, to be exact. However, there is somewhat of a silver lining, and that is the fact that the game does run at 60 FPS on the Xbox Series S, so that certainly isn't necessarily a bad thing, though. Obviously, there are those who prefer to have sort of graphical options, though, and that would have been great if they added that for the Xbox Series S, though, but unfortunately, that's not the case for the Xbox Series S, though. So yeah, that is a little bit of a disappointment, though, but at least the silver lining is you are getting 60 FPS in it, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. And last but not least, though, I will say the one disappointment for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and this comes down really towards preference and taste, though, and that has to do with the fact that it's still basically a Borderlands game, no ifs, ands, or maybe or buts, though. Now, there are those who do like the Borderlands gameplay and all, the whole looter shooter and all that stuff, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, though. I think there's nothing wrong with that, though. But bear in mind that kind of gameplay may not appeal to everyone. So if you're expecting the game to be expecting some major overhaul in terms of gameplay or anything like that, you probably are not going to find this in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. There are some new features here and there, but nothing in the level that shakes up the formula, though. It's kind of like how I view, like the Nintendo-themed Warrior games. Now, I like, the Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity, and I also enjoy basically, like the Fire Emblem Warriors. I'm looking forward to the next one, Three Hopes, though. But no matter how I look at those games, they're still Warrior games, no matter what, though. So it's sort of what I view Tiny Tina Wonderland. It's still an enjoyable game, but it's still more Borderlands, no ifs, ands, maybe or buts about it. For some, that might be a good thing. For others, it may not be your cup of tea, though. Overall, Tiny Tina Wonderlands is a wonderful game. It's an enjoyable game, to be exact, especially if you are a Borderlands fan. At its best, though, it still maintains the Borderlands gameplay that people either love and all that, and the visuals still hold up very well, even though this is running on Unreal Engine 4, though. And I do like the fact that they decided to go with the fantasy and the whole a bit of a homage to, the classic tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and all, and the game is still funny as ever. At its worst, though, is the fact that unfortunately for Series S owners, there's not going to be any graphical options, which is a bit disappointing. And the fact that it's still Borderlands gameplay, no ifs, ands, maybe, or buts about it. Some folks are going to be okay with that. Some who are hoping for a major overhaul might be disappointed, though. But in either case, though, fans of the Borderlands series will probably enjoy Tiny Tina's Wonderland, though. And I would definitely be open to a sequel to Tiny Tina's Wonderland if that ever happens, though. I mean, I would like to see another spin-off with the fantasy setting, so would I like to see some overhaul to the gameplay? To some degree, yes, I would, though. I mean, I'm not bothered with the Borderlands looter shooter gameplay, but I can understand how that might not sit with everyone, though. But in either case, though, I enjoyed Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Okay, before I end this video, I want to give my thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett that I just finished watching on Disney+. It's worth pointing out, I forgot to mention this for parents out there, that the TV show is rated TV-14, though. Now, one of the shows that premiered when Disney Plus launched was The Mandalorian, taking place before The Force Awakens, but after the Star Wars Return of the Jedi, though. It was a series that became sort of like a phenomenon for a lot of folks out there, as The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, or Guru, has sort of became very iconic, to be exact, though. And one of the interesting things, I think season 2 or season 1, I'm not 100% sure, I think it's season 2, though, is that we got a chance to see Boba Fett, though, who managed to survive the, I think, Scar Pit, if I'm saying the name correctly, who was thrown in near the beginning of Star Wars Return of the Jedi, though. So it was kind of interesting to see that they were going to do a TV or spin-off series on it based off of Boba Fett himself, and the series certainly did not disappoint. The whole thing follows a style similar to how The Mandalorian is. You definitely get sort of a spaghetti western vibe to it in a way, and the way the series is set up, as each episode is directed by a certain different director, though. And what's interesting, you sort of see flashbacks between how Boba Fett got out of that situation at the end, near the beginning of Return of the Jedi, to how he was able to take over Jabba the Hutt's palace and all. And you see the journey ranging from being captured by the Tusken Raiders to basically earning their trust and all. So it's very interesting to see how he was able to make that journey and all that stuff. If there is one criticism I have for the Book of Boba Fett, is that it has to do with episode 5 and somewhat with episode 6, though. And that has to do with how most of the episodes, those two kind of focus heavily on just the Mandalorian alone. Now, I have no problems with the idea of having the Mandalorian, make an appearance here and there in the Book of Boba Fett, nor do I have any episodes of characters crossing over or anything like that. I don't have a problem with it. It's just that I can't help but feel that could have been saved for like a season 3 of The Mandalorian and all that stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of more Mandalorian and more of Baby Yoda, but I just feel like this should have been saved for a season 3 of Mandalorian, not in the Book of Boba Fett, which is mostly should have been focused more on Boba Fett and all. But either way, despite that, though, it's still a great TV show on Disney Plus. Nevertheless, I think it's really enjoyable, especially for those who are fans of The Mandalorian and all that stuff. And I do hope if they ever do a season 2, that would be great, though. Although right now, I am looking forward to a season 3 of The Mandalorian, though, to be exact. But in either case, those who like The Mandalorian will probably like the Book of Boba Fett. Okay, this concludes my video review of Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and again, the Book of Boba Fett as well. Review and thought, though. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Tiny Tina's Wonderland? Are you happy they went with a fantasy setting this time, though? Do you like the idea of a Borderlands spin-off? Do you think they should do more of that? Do you think there should be a sequel to Tiny Tina's Wonderland? Are you okay with the Borderlands-like gameplay, or do you think it's time for somewhat of an overhaul at all? And what are your thoughts about the Book of Boba Fett? Did you watch all the episodes, though? Did you enjoy the series, though? Did you like the fact, did you like how it's basically it was the story of Boba Fett's journey from taking over Jabba the Hutt's palace, though. Are you okay with one of the episodes focused squarely on the Mandalorian in the book of Boba Fett, or do you feel like that could have been saved for like a Mandalorian season 3? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, wish you all a good day then. Bye!